Right, well, it's my delight to welcome Bobby Hajjaj onto the Guido Friday afternoon show. Bobby is a respected politician in Bangladesh who I believe led the original case, the original charges against Tulip Siddiq and the other members of Sheikh Hasina's family in connection to that power plant deal to the Anti-Corruption Commission. So I was wondering, Bobby, if you could just to start off, tell us some more about that specific case.
Sure. Thank you so much, Max, for inviting me, first and foremost. That case was a landmark case for many different reasons. But having said that, let me start off a little bit by first and foremost identifying that Sheikh Hasina and her family have, sort of run a dictatorial regime in Bangladesh for 15 years, and they have been involved in much bigger crimes, including mass murders, pogroms on opposition politicians, sort of vote rigging and massive levels of corruption. And it's important to understand that Sheikh Hasina's sister, Sheikh Rehana, Tulip Siddiqui's mother, was intricately involved with all of these activities. And Tulip Siddiqui's brother, Radwan Siddiq, was also intricately involved with all of these, crimes over the last 15 years. And both of them are, just like Tulip Siddiq, sort of citizens of the UK. So that's one thing that's important to understand. The reason we filed a case against that particular Russian power plant case was because that was one of the few ones in which, crimes in Bangladesh in which we could directly sort of suspect and somewhat find links with Tulip Siddiq herself. I mean, we have long had suspicions that Tulip Siddiqui has been working as the front person, if you will, of the Hasina regime in the UK. Especially, even given her mother and her brother, who are intimately connected with all of the crimes, including, sort of political pogroms and whatnot. So, and Tulip Siddiqui was also involved in most of the meetings of the deal. And we have been working in, sort of in Bangladesh to find as much evidence as we can. And so far, the government reports have come up with multiple evidence against Tulip Siddiq, including and not limited to illegally getting land plots for Tulip Siddiqui, her brother, her mother, and all of them. So those things have been unearthed already, and there is an ongoing investigation thanks to our petition in court, or the case we filed. There's an ongoing investigation on Tulip Siddiqui and many of her family members regarding to all of these corruption charges.
And what sort of timeline do you think the ACC will follow? How long is it going to take for all this stuff to come to bear? Because presumably they will call Tulip to come and be heard, to give her defense in Bangladesh.
Right. First and foremost, I mean, we don't know how long the ACC investigation might take, but we suspect it's not going to take very long. Especially, not necessarily it won't take very long to unearth all evidence, but it won't take very long to unearth at least significant evidence. That's what we believe. And given that Tulip Siddiq holds dual citizenship, and even though Bangladesh, UK don't have an official extradition treaty, I believe, but there are certain terms and understandings on those terms. So from our end, we will certainly push for the Anti-Corruption Commission and law enforcement here to ask for Tulip Siddiqui to come and give, face law enforcement or face the courts here. Now, obviously, Tulip Siddiqui and her family members might argue that they're not going to get, if you will, due course of justice in Bangladesh, but that's not true because the due course of Bangladesh was derailed in Bangladesh while Tulip Siddiqui's aunt and mother were in power. And one important point I want to make, because it's not just Tulip Siddiqui, by the way. I mean, what we believe that the people of the UK deserve to know as well. It's not just Tulip Siddiqui. Senior members of the Labour government have been seen hobnobbing with the dictator Hasina and Rehana, and Tulip Siddiqui's mother and aunt, with their confidants, Anwaruzzaman being one of them, and there were many others. And even before the last election in which Labour won power, there were many different Awami League, people, lobbyists, businessmen, Awami League linked politicians and businessmen in the UK who were seen hobnobbing. And even more recently, after the fall of the dictatorial regime, they've been seen hobnobbing with, the Honourable Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, and many others. Now, a simple question I'd like to ask through you to the people of the UK, if such were happening, now instead of Hasina, if Putin and his, oligarchs connected to Putin, political leaders connected to Putin were hobnobbing with labor and whatnot before the last election, would that not be seen as an attempt at, sort of intervening in the electoral process in the UK? Now, if that is the case, if that would be seen in that manner, then we believe that dictator Hasina and her people hobnobbing with, sort of the Labour Party, should be something that should raise alarm bells and questions about election intervention, because a lot of money did change hands. I mean, we believe that Hasina and Rehanna, I mean, Tulip's mother and aunt, paid Tulip's way into parliament, not just parliament, into, the cabinet. So these are things we believe that, we want thorough investigations in the UK, and we believe, if the right information reaches the people of the United Kingdom, the people of England would want right investigations into these issues.
So that's a really interesting point. Obviously, Tulip is gone from government now as of this week. But what do you think needs to happen now on the UK side? Presumably, that's not the end of the matter, is it?
No, because again, as I just brought up, I mean, Tulip was the conduit. It was through Tulip that all of these relationships were being built. But these relationships are there. Even I think last month there was a report in the Guardian or one of your major newspapers about Anwar-Zaman, who is a closely linked, business and political person with the Hasina Rehana regime, as in Tulip's mother and aunt, and he was seen hobnobbing with the Prime Minister Keir Starmer. And he is not the lone case. There have been many such, and especially before the election. So we assume that a lot of these were making campaign contributions. I mean, there have been multiple news reports where Awami League, as in Tulip's mother and aunt's regime, dictatorial regime, politicians and businessmen in the UK that have been closely linked with that dictatorial regime in Bangladesh were supporting and even campaigning for Labour. So if Putin's people doing it would be seen as, sort of electoral intervention in the UK, then how's Hasina's people or, Tulip's mother and aunt's people any different? So we believe,
Yeah.
I mean, as people of Bangladesh, we'd like to see the investigations happen. And we firmly believe that the people of the UK, given the right information, would also ask for thorough investigations, not just into Tulip Siddiqui, but all relationships with dictatorial governments, close confidants and the Labour government.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the financial element here is also important because I remember there was a white paper published recently into the state of the Bangladeshi economy, and it was identified in this white paper that the UK is a key financial conduit for allegedly embezzled funds that were taken by regime figures and stored mostly in property assets in the UK. Obviously, the Tulip's properties, which were gifted by figures linked to the Awami League are only very few. There are huge property empires owned by these Awami League figures, and presumably the only way for any of that of those funds to be repatriated and used by Mohammed Yunus's government, or indeed the next government once we have new elections in Bangladesh, the full cooperation of the UK authorities will be required. So, I mean, on your side, you guys are probably going to be asking for that, aren't you, from the UK?
Well, certainly we will, and we have certain expectations because of the friendship between the people of the UK and the people of Bangladesh, and so we have from those expectations we expect sort of a large part to bring the elements of the dictatorial government who are in the UK, who have siphoned hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars and pounds into the UK over the last 15 years, and which we believe Tulip Siddiqui is a huge part of. But having said that, we want all of these people brought to justice. We want to recover as much of that money as possible into Bangladesh. So we want the UK government's help, and we fear that a UK government that was heavily supported by confidants of this dictatorial regime, by Tulip's mother and aunt's people, that particular government might not be particularly helpful. And hence, we ask of the people of the UK and their help and their support in bringing everybody who's associated with the looting and raping of Bangladesh, I mean, especially financially, if not by many other means, to bring them to justice.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's worth pointing out that Tulip herself denies all wrongdoing and says that these are politically trumped up charges,
Right.
which some might argue means that a full and thorough investigation is what's required. Because if they're trumped up, then the investigation will come to nothing. It's also potentially a
Hallelujah.
reason for
Exactly.
Tulip to go to Bangladesh to testify to the Anti-Corruption Commission as well.
Absolutely, and I will bring another matter to your attention and to your viewers' attention. That for the last 15 years, Tulip has been the vocal, sort of supporter, and I mean, has supported the Hasina and Rehana, her mother and aunt's dictatorial regime in every possible way in the UK. I mean, the Labour and the Awami League Party had been almost like sister parties. And knowing very well the human rights abuses, the political pogroms, the mass murders, the vote riggings, and the sort of financial corruptions that Hasina and Rehana's government were involved with. And Tulip's own mother and brother are intimately involved and connected to most of the crimes of the regime. Tulip, not so much. But if her mother, her brother are intimately connected, if all the money is going through to the UK, Tulip's, sort of position in the Labour government. Even the Labour government itself's election has been hugely supported by Hasina's dictatorial government, money coming from there, and by Hasina and Rehana's confidants. Then how clean might truly Tilip Siddiq be?
That's an excellent question. Yeah, and I mean, what message does this send to countries around the world who are struggling to overthrow dictatorial regimes that we've got Hasina's people, as you say, hobnobbing as they have done over the last a decade, if not more, with senior Labour politicians, and as recently as last month with the Prime Minister. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't think it's a particularly good look for the UK. I mean, how is it seen over in Bangladesh, especially as it took so long to get rid of her as well?
Right. No, I mean, we a large part, the success that we see Tulip, sort of having gained through usurping, sort of many things from this country through her aunt and mother's, sort of dictatorial regime and the cruelties on our land, them sort of enjoying such successes based on sort of what they've looted from us is a matter of grief for the people of Bangladesh. It deeply saddens us. And also, it does. I mean, it's not just about us, by the way, Max. It's also about, sort of our friends in the UK, because I think our friends in the UK deserve to know the truth. And if the truth comes out negative for Labour, which we suspect it very well might, that the Awami League money, that the dictators, looted wealth, had a huge impact on Labour winning election, not just Tulip winning election, Labour winning election, then the people of the UK have a right to know this. The people of the UK have a right to know that the government that is in place in their land came to power with the looted money of a corrupt dictator.
So the view in Bangladesh is that you would like to know, we would like to know exactly the full extent, because this is really, it looks like it's just getting started, to be honest, this entire unraveling of these links.
Yes, yeah, we believe so, and we want to see the truth. I mean, we are working on our end to find as much truth as we can. But whatever has happened to the money that has gone there and how that was used and how maybe Tulip Siddiqui was the main conduit of putting it in different places, or how sort of UK government powers when you lobby with the Labour government helped Hasina's regime over time. All of these can only be the truth can only be unearthed by investigating in the UK, not over here. Hence, we look at the UK for support.
That's a very powerful message. Well, Bobby Hajjaj, thank you very much for speaking to Guido Fawkes today. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max.